This is timely because June is Pet Preparedness Month, and I know you're all eating, so I won't make you say anything, but raise your hand if you have a pet at home. Oh, okay, so a bunch of you guys. So the Humane Society, just a little bit about us. We are local, so we are not affiliated with the Humane Society of the United States or any of the other shelters that have Humane Society in the name. We are all kind of individual. We're not funded by the government. We're funded by private donations. And we've been around a long time. So next week, actually, we celebrate our 62nd anniversary. And we're pretty close to the Sunny Slope location, which has been there all 62 years. If you haven't been to see us, you should. But we've been around quite a while. And so in our everyday life, a little bit about what we do is our main goal is taking in the sick and the injured and the abused. So you guys are probably familiar with a county shelter. They would take in your healthy strays, your bite dogs, dangerous dogs. If a dog is running loose, you would be calling the county. If that dog that was running loose got hit by a car and was now injured, it's going to come to us. So stray cats, unfortunately, don't really exist if they're healthy. But if they're injured, they come to us. And then we actually have contracts with 9 of the cities in the valley for cruelty investigations. So we end up with a lot of sick, injured, abused animals. And as you can see, we take in over 16,000 a year. When you think that all the healthy strays go to county, it's kind of crazy to think how many are sick or injured that come to us. And we do get some owner surrenders as well. So a lot of what we're doing is rehabbing abused animals or sick and injured animals. We have about 40 people on our shelter medical staff. We have over 12 vets in the organization, and we have 8 people on our behavior staff, so we can save and rehab most everything that comes to us, which is pretty great. But we do also help when people have what I like to call I don't like to call, but what I do call a personal disaster. So we work very closely with the Red Cross, and the most common disaster that they respond to is a house fire. And so we try and help out in that case. So if someone has a personal disaster at home or they have a house fire, like just last week, a gentleman's house caught fire and he had 18 dogs. Well, he probably didn't have a place for those 18 dogs to go. So there's a few organizations that do that, but we were able to take those guys in. And then you see we also do large-scale intakes. So 18 dogs in one house sounds like a lot, but we do a lot of hoarding cases where I personally was in a house that had 228 cats in a 2-bedroom apartment. Yeah, so that's a disaster for us right there. So those are kind of the things that we do on an everyday basis. And in the summer, we're always full, and we rely very heavily on our fosters. So in the shelter, we might have 800-ish animals, depending on the type. And in our foster homes, we might also have another 800. So that's 1,600 animals coming through our system, needing medical help, and then going out to find homes. So that's kind of what we do on an everyday basis. Now, for disasters, it starts and ends, like we always say, at the local level, right? So we are a local humane society. We are here in Maricopa County. And so we work closely with the county animal shelter so that we can assist in the county plan and in the Palo Verde plan. So if it's Palo Verde, we might be helping with decontamination. So this was at the Wickenburg exercise this year. So John Reynolds at county is the primary, and then we would back him up on that. Or we might be helping with sheltering. So that's what we tend to do the majority of our work in, is sheltering and medical. And we try and partner very closely with the Red Cross because they're usually ones that are setting up the human shelter, and we know that it's really important to be able to have your pets right there with you. So if you have a service animal, of course they're staying with you. But if you just have a household pet that you have taken with you, we want to have them as close as possible to the humans. It's great for the humans because it reduces their stress. It's great for the animal to be able to see their people. And quite frankly, it's great for us to have the owners come and care for their animals. Helps us out quite a bit. So this was at the National Mass Care Exercise last year, I believe it was. And we do train together. So that picture is some of the AHS folks and some of the county folks. And so when we are doing an exercise or preparing for a disaster, or even some of the training that we do just throughout the year, we try and do that with the partners that we are going to work with. So we partner with county, of course, on a daily basis in shelter work, but also in disasters. And we just kind of handle the dogs and the cats and the critters, the smaller pets. So if it's livestock, then we need to rely on the state vets department or the Department of Ag. And we also rely on Midwestern very closely. So Midwestern University, they actually come to our shelter. They send their students and do surgeries, so we see them quite frequently. But they also train with us for disaster events. So it's very much a team sport here in the Valley. Now, if it gets outside of the county, we are the state designated responder. So if another county called us and needed help, of course we would come and help. And if the state had a disaster, we would assist when called. So generally what we're doing on a state one is going to be a wildfire response. That tends to be the most common. And so we can send our team out there, which you'll see them in a second, and we'll do sheltering if that's what we need to do. So you can see there we're set up in a gym. Or we send a medical team. So we have a couple of vets on our team and a number of technicians on the disaster team. So we always send a vet and a couple of techs, and then that vehicle that you're seeing there is our mobile veterinary clinic. So they can actually do minor surgeries in there. There's some animal holding capability. They can do vaccines. They can do minor injuries, whatever might need to be done. They can at least stabilize or handle it completely before we get them somewhere else. And then we have a field response team. So our field team, you may have seen them on Animal Cops for the cruelty investigations and the ambulance work. They're the EAMTs. They drive the animal ambulances around here. But they do a lot of things, and so they'll do canal rescues or climbing up in a tree, or the kitten is stuck in a pipe or a chimney or a wall or whatever it might be. But they also would go with us on our disasters, so that if an animal is left behind or we're having trouble capturing an animal, they're there to help with that as well. And then if it gets bigger than the state, we will go to other neighboring states if asked. So we sent a team to Katrina. We ended up bringing back about 200 animals with us on that one. And that's another request that we get is for if the disaster is on the other side of the country, can we take in animals from those shelters to free up animals? So we do that from time to time when we have space. And we also sent a medical team to Harvey, so sending a vet and a few techs there. So that's kind of what the Humane Society does in the disaster realm to help the community as much as we can. And that's our current team. We have 20 folks on the team, so we have behavior specialists, we have field responders, we have veterinarians, we have vet techs, we have animal care, and they get to train throughout the year. We do whatever exercises we're called to, which is great. They did some human first aid training this past year, and like I mentioned, those hoarding houses, normally, if the person self-identifies and they call us and they say, hey, I need some help, then we will get them to just bring in like a few animals every week. So maybe 10 or 15 come in every week. But there are times where we have to work with the police department and go out, and the PD is going to seize all of the animals at once. So we have had to bring in up to 150 at one time. And so that requires the team rolling out to be able to do that, because we have to set up on scene there to be able to acquire the animal, process them, intake them, transport them back, and start the medical. So it's a good way to practice, not always fun, but I mean, it's great that we can use the team both in disaster and in stuff we have to deal with anyway. So local starts at home. That is the very, very definition of super local. And I have a video for you guys to watch, and then we're going to talk about how to make sure that your pets are prepared.
Hi, my name is Ruthie Jesus with the Arizona Humane Society's Field Operations team. As an emergency animal medical technician, I've learned firsthand that when disaster strikes, you may only have moments to evacuate. Having a plan in place will help ensure that you're prepared to act quickly. When preparing for a disaster or simply the unexpected, remember to include your family pets in your survival plans. Assemble a disaster kit and practice your plan. As part of your preparations, make sure your pet has proper ID, tags, collars, microchips. Assemble a disaster kit, find a safe place to stay ahead of time. Plan for your pet if you're not going to be home. Give a key to neighbors, a pet sitter, and make sure they have your pet's feeding and medication schedule. In the event of an evacuation, evacuate early. Remember to take your pets with you and plan for your livestock. In extreme weather conditions, bring your pets indoors. Designate a safe, secure room with their food, water, toys, and turn on the TV or radio to help keep them calm. After an emergency, be patient with your pets. Stay with them and don't let them roam alone. Keep dogs on leash and keep cats and critters in their crate while you assess the damage. Be sure to include the following on your disaster checklist: leashes, harnesses, carriers, blankets and towels, food and water enough for 5 days, bowls and a can opener, medications in waterproof containers, vet records, pet first aid kit, litter box, litter and scoop, garbage bags or doggy bags, toys, a current photo of your pets and their descriptions, contact information for your veterinarian, and a copy of their feeding schedules, medical conditions, and behavioral issues. Our teams at the Arizona Humane Society are here to support you. For more information, please visit azhumane.org.
So I'm sure you were furiously scribbling all that information down so you have it for your kit, right? So I did not expect you to write that down. Hopefully you already have a kit, and I am preaching to the choir, but if not, we're going to go over some things to think about. This checklist is on our website, but I also printed some copies. They're on one of the tables sitting right out here. And that pet alert sticker that's in the corner, you know, I said the most common disaster Red Cross is responding to is a house fire. That is one of those stickers that goes on the window where you can say, oh, I have 4 dogs or 228 cats or whatever it is right there to let the first responders know. And I brought you guys some of those. So they're sitting there next to the checklist on the table out front. So first thing I would say before we even get to your plan is if you have not microchipped your pets, definitely microchip your pets. So it is kind of like, I don't know, the size of a grain of a rice, maybe a little bit smaller, and it's implanted under the skin. And it's not like a low jack. You can't find them if they run off. But it is permanent identification. So vets' offices, shelters, PetSmarts, other random folks will have a scanner, and they would be able to scan the animal, get the contact information, and get them back to you. And I will say for both AHS and county, if you have ID on your pet, that buys you more time on the stray hold. So if your dog gets loose and they are picked up, they have to be held by law for 72 hours. But if they have a form of identification, they're held for 5 days. So if you're out of town and somebody's watching them and the dog gets loose and it takes you a bit to get back, it just buys you a little bit of time. So I would definitely do that. Now, they have a microchip because that was your first thing, right? Now, if you're going to evacuate, take them with you. So if you leave them behind, not only is that stressful for you, stressful for them, but it can put you and it can put first responders or it could put us at risk trying to go in and get them later or trying to feed in place or make sure that they are okay. So you definitely want to take them with you, and you're going to need to think about where would I take them. So again, if you have a service animal, they're going with you, no problem. But if this is just your pet, like I need to think about, okay, if I had to leave my home and take my dog, where am I gonna go? So maybe I think, well, I'm gonna go to my buddy's house. Then I need to confirm with my buddy that it's okay that I bring my 60-pound dog that sheds a lot to their house. Or if they are in the affected area, do I have someone that's further out that I can stay with? Or let's say I'm going to go stay in a hotel. Plenty of hotels take pets, but I need to plan ahead and have figured out which one would I go to. And I probably need a plan A and B and C, because if it's more than just me affected, someone else with a pet has had that same good idea and they might already have rented that room. Or maybe it's spring training and I couldn't get a room if I tried. So maybe I think, well, I'm going to board her then. I can just use a boarding facility. Then again, is it summer vacation or spring break and they are full? And do I have all the required vaccinations? So maybe I think, well, I'm just going to go take her to the PetSmart Pets Hotel, and she doesn't have all of her shots, but no big deal because they have a Banfield right there. So I'll just like pop over, get the shot, and then go board. But boarding facilities usually have a waiting period for the vaccine to take effect. So it's not like you can get the shot and then immediately board them. So you really need to plan ahead, or maybe you're going to end up staying in a temporary shelter and your pet is going to stay with us, perhaps. But think about where you're going to take them and have a few different options. And then think about how are you going to get them there. So my dog loves going for a ride. That's super easy. Pick up the car keys, she's there. But maybe the dogs don't love going for a ride, or maybe you don't have a way to secure them in the car, or maybe it's a cat And how many of you have a cat that loves going for a ride? Yeah. So if you take them places, it's probably to the vet. And so they're going to know if that carrier comes out, they better hide under the bed. And nobody wants to be retrieving their cat from under the bed in the middle of a disaster. So you want to make sure that you have thought through that you're prepared, that you have carriers or whatever you need, and you can get them to where you're going. And I just made the assumption that you were driving. So let's say that you don't have a car or you don't drive. I mean, I don't know if Uber takes pets. I don't know if you can take your big dog on public transportation. So you'd want to think through, okay, how am I going to get them wherever I'm going? So you might need a trip to the vet. You definitely need a plan. Hopefully you have a few different options. And then if you're relying on friends or neighbors, you need to let them know that you're relying on them. And like what triggers that? Is it you coming over and asking for help? What if you're not home? Do they know to come check on your pet if you're not there and something happens? Making sure that your family is aware so that you guys are all on the same page and you've thought through what you're going to do. And then again, take them to the vet if you need to get anything medically done or their vaccines up to date. So then when you get their vaccines up to date, you need to make sure that you have copies of those, because just like you guys have important documents that you keep in your kit, you're going to need to keep your vet records in your kit as well. And so maybe that's a piece of paper, maybe you've taken a picture of the piece of paper on your phone so you have it there. You also want to make sure that you have proof of ownership and some ID. So we've already talked about a microchip, but if your dog is 6 or your cat is 10 and maybe you got them from the shelter and they were chipped then, do you still have the same phone number as is registered with the chip? Are your emergency contacts still the same? If you have a collar and a tag on them, is that information still correct? And if your pet is not licensed with the county, you should totally license them with the county. Not only is that an extra proof of ownership, but county will give your dog a free ride home if they are picked up and they have a license, which is kind of nice. And just recently they gave us access, so if our field team picks up a limping cat and he's got identification on him, we can get into the county system, see where he lives, drop him off, contact the owner, whatever it might be. I would also recommend that you have clear pictures of your pets. So have a picture of the headshot. I would also personally have a picture of a side view, because if your dog is running down the street and someone's like, oh, I think I saw it, what view did they see? They saw the side view. So I would have the front and the side, and again, for additional proof of ownership, but not the only proof of ownership, I would have a picture of you with your pet. So making sure that you have all the identification you need and all the proper documents. And now, you know where you're going to take them, you know how you're going to get them there, you have a plan, you've told people about your plan, they have a microchip, you've gone to the vet, the shot records are up to date, you have your proof of ownership, you are set, except they need some stuff. So whatever they would need to make it for 4 or 5 days, I would have in a kit for them. So I would have a supply of food, because you can probably bum food off of somebody, but nobody wants to be changing an animal's food and then hoping for the best results on the other side. So keep their diet pretty steady. I would make sure that you have bowls, that you have water. If they're on medication, make sure you have medication, a collar, a leash. Make sure that the collar fits really well, because they are probably going to be freaked out. And if you've never had a dog back out of a collar, it's a little bit scary, so make sure that that fits well. Again, their shot records, I'd say a first aid kit with a few different things and knowing how to use those items that are in the first aid kit. I personally have little, well, I say little, she's a German Shepherd, so they're like medium size. Boots for my dog in the car, because if we had to get out of the car and hoof it, like that pavement is way too hot, so that's not an option for her. So I have a little bit different stuff here than I did in Texas, where the pavement didn't melt her feet off. But make sure that you have what they need, and if there's something that would make them more comfortable, then bring that as well. So a favorite blanket or toy or what have you. So now you're ready, right? We are in the ready stage right here, where we're making the plan and we're getting the kit. And then you need to test your plan. So you really should drill. Like set your timer, pretend you have to evacuate, and go. And if you think you would be freaked out in an evacuation, then use your acting skills and act freaked out and see how your animals respond. Because testing is the best way to find out what you are missing. We drill with our disaster team at work. Don't tell them, but they probably have a drill coming tomorrow. And I swear, every time we do it, we think, oh yeah, like we've got it. And inevitably, we find that we're missing something, or our plan A and plan B might not be working. That vehicle might be in the shop, or that person might be out, and so we need to have a plan C. So definitely test your plan, throw them in the car, drive around, give them a treat, come back in. It'll be great practice for your cat. And then just identify if you have any gaps. If you need to talk to your vet to get more records, or maybe you're like, wow, driving around the block with my cat in the carrier was no fun, perhaps I could talk to them about a sedative. Or if you're like, I couldn't even get my cat in the carrier, or my dog was freaking out, then talk to your vet. You could talk to a trainer. We have some tips online. So we have our little disaster site. It's got the video you saw earlier. It's got the checklist, some other tips. But we also have a pet behavior tip page, and so anything pretty much that you need to know on how to train the cat, the dog, how to get them comfortable with things, you can find on that site, or you can always call us and ask, and we are more than happy to help you out. So hopefully, if you don't have a kit and you haven't tested your plan, you go home and you try that today. Thank you.